Now that we've got a channel with content, let's add video playback functionality to it. In this lesson, we're going to update the interface of the main scene and grid screen components and add a video node to the main scene BrightScript file. When we're done selecting a video from the grid screen, we'll launch it directly into playback. You'll learn how to add the SceneGraph video node to your channel and link it to the content and other components. You'll also learn how to open the video screen when content is selected and close it when playback finishes or the back button is pressed on the Roku remote control. Before enabling video playback on our channel, let's review the requirements for streaming videos on the Roku platform. First off, your original or licensed content must be hosted on your website, a content delivery network or CDN, online video platform or OVP, or other online hosting solution. Video content must also be included in a Roku-supported file format. This includes DASH, HLS, Smooth, or M4V, MOV, or MP4. DASH and HLS are the preferred formats because they are the first to receive new features and offer the best playback performance. To provide the best user experience, you'll want to have multiple video streams of varying quality. This way, Roku devices can automatically select the best streaming quality based on the viewer's network connection. Try to provide multiple profiles of video quality with bit rates ranging from 500 to at least 4,000 kilobytes per second. Check out the Roku streaming specification for the ideal bitrate ladder and resolutions to be used. Okay, now let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is to clone the previous example. This way you can refer back to it if needed. So let's copy the grid screen example, paste it, and rename it Video Player. Now let's expand the Video Player folder, the Components folder, and then open the MainScene.xml file. We're going to update the interface of the main scene component. We just need to add a script element for the VideoPlayerLogic.brs file that we'll create in the next step. This script will be stored in the UI Logic folder with the other UI scripts. Now let's update the main scene BrightScript file. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the background color to this lighter shade of purple and add a background image. Now let's add an onKeyEvent function. This function closes the video player screen when the back button on the remote control is pressed. So this method takes two parameters, the key that received the input and a flag indicating whether it was pressed. Let's set a flag name result to false. We'll use this to track whether the video player handled the back button key press. Now let's add logic for when there's a key press and it's from the back button to get the number of screens in the stack. We'll use the screen stack array we created in the previous lesson to get this. And if there are two or more screens open, call the close screen method to close the video screen and set the result flag to true. Finally, let's return the result flag to let the Roku OS know that our component handled the remote control key event. For the next step, let's create the video player UI script that we added to the interface of the main scene component. First, let's create a new file in your text editor or IDE. We're then going to add functions to open the video screen, close the video player when a video is done, and stop the video player. The first function we're going to add is showVieoScreen. As the name implies, it shows the video screen when a video is selected, and it listens for when the video is completed or the back button on the remote control is pressed. It takes a content node and the index of the column containing the selected content. This event is called whenever content in the row list is selected. When this happens, we want to create an instance of the video node and store it in the video player reference variable. We'll provide component access to the video node using the m.dot attribute. Now we want to create a playlist containing the selected video and the other ones in the row that come after it. For example, if a row has 4 videos and the second one is selected, the playlist should contain the second, third, and fourth videos in that order. This will work by default if the first video in the row is selected, but additional logic is needed for any other video in the row. So let's first check whether the item index parameter passed into this method is not 0. If it's not 0, that means the video selected was not the first one in the row. Now let's add logic for organizing the content when this happens. Let's get the number of items in the row using the getChildCount method of the content node and store it in a number of children variable. And use the getChildren method of the content node to get the videos for our playlist. This method returns an array that contains a specific number of child nodes starting at the specified position. So we'll figure out the number of videos to get by subtracting the index of the selected video from the number of videos in the row. For example, if the row contains 4 videos and I select the second one, which has an index of 1, we'll get 3 videos starting with the second one. Let's store the array that's returned by the getChildren function in a children variable. Now let's create an array named childrenClone, and we'll use this in the next step. Let's use a for loop to iterate through the child nodes for the videos in the children variable, and then store a copy of them in the children array. We need to do this to protect our application in case the video node invalidates our content. We'll use the content node's clone method to copy the videos and then add them to the end of the childrenClone array. Now we'll create a parent content node for our clone videos and name it node, and use the update method to add the videos in the childrenClone array to the node parent node. Now let's set the video player's content node to node. So now the video player has our playlist. Before we can show our video node and start playback, we still have to create the playlist for when the first video in the row is selected. This is easy to do. We'll just clone the videos in the row content to the video player's content node. If you recall, this variable contains the entire row starting with a selected video. Now that we've created our playlist, let's enable it in our video player. Let's show the video screen by calling the showScreen method we created in the previous unit. This takes our video player node, adds it to the screen stack, and then displays it. And let's set the video player's control attribute to play to start video playback. Finally, let's create observers for the state and visible attributes of the video player. When the state of the video player changes, we'll call the onVideoPlayerStateChange handler that we'll create in the next step. When the visibility of the video player changes, we'll call the onVideoVisibleChange handler that we'll create after that. Okay, so let's create the onVideoPlayerStateChange event handler. We'll use this handler to close the video player screen when the videos in the playlist are done or an error occurs. So let's store the video node's state attribute in a state variable and add logic for when the state is error or finished to call the closeScreen method we created in the previous unit. This closes the video screen by removing it from the stack and hiding it. It then displays the previous screen in the stack, which is the grid screen. Okay, now let's create the onVideoVisibleChange event handler. We'll use this handler to stop video playback when the video player loses visibility and switch focus back to the selected video on the grid screen. So let's add logic for when the video player's visible attribute is false and the component currently at the top of the screen is visible. Let's get the index of the currently playing video in the playlist using the content index attribute of the video player, and let's store it in a current index variable. Now stop video playback, setting the video player's control attribute to stop, and clear the content from the video player by setting the content attribute to invalid. This ensures that the video player starts correctly the next time. Now let's return the focus back to the grid screen using its setFocus method, and navigate in the grid screen to the last video played. We can do this by setting the grid screen's jump to row item attribute to the index of the last item played. We can figure this out by using the selected index two-dimensional array. We'll use the first element for the row, and for the column, we'll add the index of the current video to the index of the second element. And we're done. Save this file in the UI logic directory and name it VideoPlayer.brs. Now that we've updated the MainScene component and added logic for the video player UI, we just need to quickly update the grid screen so it can interact with the video screen, and then we're done. First, let's update the interface of the grid screen component. Just like we did with the MainScene component, we need to expose the same row item selected field as we did in the main scene. This enables the video node to get the content from the row list when a video is selected, and then play the content. As you may recall, it has an int array type, and then we need to enable the always notify attribute, set the alias field to rowList.rowItemSelected. Then we're going to expose the row items jump to row item field, which is also an int array. When we close the video player, we want the video in the specified row and column in the grid screen to gain focused. We'll also set its alias field to rowList.jump to row item to expose this field to the grid screen. Save this file and then open the GridScreen BrightScript file. After the video player is closed, the grid screen regains visibility. When this happens, we want to set the focus in the grid screen to the row list. So in the init method, let's add an observer to the grid screen using the m.top attribute to monitor its visible field. When it changes, we'll call the onVideoVisibleChange handler. In the onVideoVisibleChange method, let's check if the grid screen has visibility using the m.top attribute. If it has visibility, set the focus to the row list using the nodeSetFocus method. Save the file, and then open the GridScreenLogic BrightScript file in the UI Logic folder. Whenever content is selected on the grid screen, we need to pass the selected item and the row of content containing the item to the video screen. To do this, we'll create an observer that monitors the row item selected field and calls the onGridScreenItemSelected selected method when it changes. This method takes an event. We want to use the event loop in our application to get the component that generated the event. So we'll use the getROSGNode method of the event, which will return the grid screen component. We'll store this in a variable named grid. And then we use the event's getData method to get the index of the currently focused video and store it in the grid screen component's selected index two-dimensional array. Now we'll get the entire row of content containing the selected item. This way we can use it as a playlist. To do this, we'll pass the first dimension of the selected index array into the grid screen content node's getChild method. And then we'll make the first video in the playlist to be the currently focused item in the grid screen. To do this, we set an item index variable to the second dimension of the selected index array. Finally, we pass the row content and item index variables into the showVieoScreen method. This method will play the content in the row playlist starting at the currently focused item. And now the video player is all set to go, so let's save the GridScreenLogic file, and we'll move on to testing our channel. Okay, so now let's test the channel on your Roku device by sideloading it. You can see that now when we select a video in the row list, it is passed to the video node, the video screen opens, and playback begins. When the video is done, the next one in the playlist is launched. When we press back on the Roku remote control, the video screen is closed, the grid screen opens, and the last video played in the playlist has focus. Thank you so much for watching this video. For more Roku developer videos, subscribe to our channel. And for the rest of the videos in this course, as well as additional demos and tutorials showing you how to develop on one of the world's leading streaming platforms, check out the link to the Roku Developers video site in the description below.